Hello and welcome to my slideshow titled Language, Meaning and Machines, Pragmatics in the Evolution of AI in Education. I am Sai Gattupalli. I'm an education technology researcher at the College of Education at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. I want to begin with the problem statement. There are more than 100 million students worldwide who are using generative AI tools such as ChatGPT or Gemini. There are many tools like that. They're using this for their classwork, homework, and teachers are using this to tutor their students. It is also important to understand that all these AI chatbots, AI tools, are generating the output based on statistical patterns. Now, without a standard understanding of the pragmatic scaffolding, learners, irrespective of if they are from K-12 or higher education, are learning to accept answers. Whatever the AI is generating, students are accepting them without questioning them. And that's why we see so many cases of AI plagiarism and so on. My work claims that we are undermining critical thinking because of that immediate acceptance of AI answers, and it is hindering the development of meaningful human AI collaboration. Why is this important right now? I'm showing a rough visual of a volcano erupting. And if you see at the bottom, it is because mainly of a pragmatic crisis that not many researchers are talking about. We all know that AI is everywhere now, but I say that meaning is missing. There are many learners who are using AI to write and summarize their work, perform data analysis, and all that, but with limited information in the sense of how to interact with these AI tools. That is a pragmatic crisis which is in the making. Fundamental to human communication, language is used as interaction. However, when it comes to interacting with these AI chatbots, it is not mimicking the intended interaction. For example, AI tools simulate conversations with one prompt. A user prompts a chatbot to make a poem, and the AI chatbot responds with a poem. However, the way you prompt the AI chatbot rewires your responses. Every single time a new response is created. At the same time, it is very hard to have AI systems that do not mimic the human understanding of the context. And so we, as the managers of these AI tools, should be able to construct meaning as co-constructors or co-authors or co-designers. I show here two side-by-side comparison between human to human conversation and human to AI conversation. I call it prompting. For example, on the left-hand side, two hypothetical characters are discussing here, and there comes a point where one of the two says, "Got it, let's revise it now." However, when we are trying to communicate the same situation within a context, when we are situating this inside a context, I am pretty sure some of you here have already experienced this. It is highly likely the AI sometimes says, "I do not have enough information. Can you provide me with more details?" Or sometimes, because of hallucinations, AI automatically makes up fake data, provides you with an output that is very generic in response. Now, below these two comparisons, I also show the markers, including some failures. I am very particularly focused on the pragmatic failures. For example, the lack of shared context. And there is also no real world grounding. There is no repair or a feedback strategy unless the user is aware to prompt for it explicitly. And as we slowly start to become aware of this conversation, we understand that AI prompting as a speech act where prompts are directives or interrogations within pragmatic terminology or pragmatic terms. Like a spoken dialogue, they are also relying on some kind of a cooperation between the human and the information that they provide. And the main point here I want to highlight is without this pragmatic framing, prompts fail. I have a couple of standardized research based prompt frameworks in the coming slides. When pragmatic framing fails, so does prompts fail and so does learning. I want to highlight on the bottom sentence here, the success of a prompt depends not on what is said, but on how it is interpreted. That doesn't necessarily mean that AI is not understanding. It is only predicting probable responses, which is the illusion that many students, educators around the world are accepting automatically without critically evaluating the responses. And of course, this ultimately leads to surface level coherence without any deep understanding of the subject matter, and hence learning fails. This burden of meaning falls on the human user, in this case, a learner or an educator, or someone who is communicating with the machine. So here comes the concept of prompt literacy. This term was originally crafted by Jacobs and Fisher in 2023, which is the idea that all the prompts that you ask a chat bot and the skills needed to create an effective chatbot and to interpret the outcome of that chat and then again testing your updated prompt and evaluating this. It's a cyclic procedure. And not only that, you also need to be very specific about who your intended final audience is. Are you creating a poem for elementary level learners, or is that a prompt to help create a lesson plan for college level physics lectures? So you need to identify who your audience is. There are specific items that we can provide along with the prompts, such as examples, any guardrail information that will allow the AI chatbot to be more specific in its output. At the end of the day, when you do get a response, you as a evaluator or an educator, you have to evaluate this from several lenses, ethically, morally, and if there's any biases that are there inside of the outcome that was generated, and then conduct the testing. So criteria, audience, specifications, and testing is the CAST prompting framework. Another way of saying this is that prompt literacy is fundamental to pragmatics. According to a paper that we co-authored last year and the year before, prompt literacy is a new age skill that helps users interact with AI in meaningful and responsible ways. And now it is also ethical ways. This provides us with a new dimension, new sector to explore teacher education with new pedagogical possibilities, ultimately to benefit the end users who are our learners. A rough, broad outline as to what all prompt literacy consists of. It's about understanding and crafting prompts, evaluating the responses that were generated as part of this, and then your refinement of the prompts, any ethical ways of considering your prompts to be more open-minded. Your prompts can be made open-minded and you can test it and so on. Here again, I show what does CRAST model indicate. We just saw it. I have an example. I'm showing this screenshot from Jacobson Fisher's paper. Imagine a prompt, one-liner prompt. Summarize the main theme of Eli Wiesel's Night. After testing several iterations of testing and feedback in their experiments, that prompt has become acting as a visitor to a Holocaust museum, describe examples of types of exhibits that show how identity and resilience of human spirit, as exemplified in the Eli Wiesel's Night, are represented in the museum. So, the more context you provide the AI chatbot in your prompt, the responses are that specific to your requirement or your need. In this slide, I want to basically convey the idea that there is a pragmatic failure in our AI transformed classrooms. Any prompt that is really vague or misaligned, for example, here initial prompt, always leads to misleading output, irrelevant, very generic outputs. This is where many learners are misinterpreting or easily accepting without any critical thinking the outcome. And the teachers sometimes are unaware because of their lack of PD or training. And when teachers do offload this to a chatbot that is not listening to the learner, there is a risk of losing learning. It is also very important to understand here that learners, irrespective of K-12 or higher ed, always be taught to interrogate if there is any assumptions in their prompts and in the responses that are generated. As we all know, AI outputs are not really neutral as they're all trained on Reddit data, internet public data. So that data has a lot of biases, all that reflect in the outcome. So it's important to critically evaluate now more than ever before. It is also very important to understand that prompting is not a one time input, it's not static. It is a ongoing, ever evolving field. According to Skank from 2010, pragmatic learning happens through trial, error, and feedback. Now, these AI tools, they offer a sandbox for learning, especially in language use, which is where pragmatic situates itself. It is not about better answers. It is about better questions, or in other words, better prompting. So the role of educators. This is where, so the role of educators is slowly shifting from transmitters of knowledge to facilitators of AI interactions, and then ultimately creating interactions and becoming interaction architects for their learners. It also becomes their responsibility to teach children prompt literacy. It is a new responsibility that has been assigned to all the teachers, educators around the world. And as I wrap up the slides, one quote, and that I paraphrased here from Psychology Today: AI now shapes us, AI now shapes what we know and how we say it. And we know ChatGPT and Gemini, all these models, are shaping the human discourse at scales that we have never seen before. And they are not stopping. They will only continue to do more and more and forever. According to Jacobs and Fisher, prompts, the way you craft prompts, influence the voices and your voices in that prompt and what knowledge is produced as a part of that. And again, according to Chen et al., and I believe you all agree with me on this matter, pragmatic awareness helps learners critique what is left out. I'm showing two other prompts that my research group at UMass has developed. These are persona prompts, where the prompt is assigned a personality. In our testing, prompts such as which you assign a personality, such as take the personality of a math coach who provides strategies for understanding language and meaning of questions using kid-friendly vocabulary. The coach's motto is, my job is to explain the math questions clearly so you know what you are supposed to do to solve the problem. Sometimes there are unfamiliar or confusing terms in the question. I will help you understand what they mean. The first math problem is, and you replace that with the problem that the teacher or the student is trying to help simplify in a kid-friendly vocabulary. In our experiments, such persona-based prompts have excelled. These prompts are also an iteration of the CAST framework I've shown before. So it is important again to understand that AI is not the smartest. It is not smarter than a user who is more skilled, a human, a real human. And we also know that AI chatbots appear very helpful when they are prompted strategically in within a structured prompting framework such as CAST. By the way, there are many such prompting frameworks out there. CAST is only one. So it is important for us to situate ourselves as educators and researchers to start teaching our learners about prompting effectively and interpreting the outcomes and the formats and any responses that are coming out of the chatbots and how that can be cyclically adapted to achieve your goals, learning outcomes, and learning objectives. Many people have called for embedding prompt literacy into existing education systems. Myself and my colleague Robert Milloy, we are also a part of that advocacy group where we are encouraging educators around the world to teach prompting techniques to children and in college level students, adult learners. Um, For example, Kim and colleagues have already tried to integrate prompting into their writing course, college writing course. And Chen and their colleagues have tried to use this in their STEM curricula for, I believe, high school students. The references are all in the slides later. But ultimately, I want to read the final bullet point here. It is our duty now to evaluate learning not just as content, but on language in use. I'm almost wrapping up. Here is a call to action to everybody who attended my session. If AI is here to stay in education, then pragmatics must be our guiding principle. Teaching prompt literacy as a core competency is the most important literacy it is quickly becoming. It is not a sidebar tech skill. And also, in our oral corpus of the entire pragmatics, as it is quickly being shaped by this AI dialogue, we need to be aware of this. We need to be sensitive enough to capture these nuances. So, whether or not you are teaching with AI, it is important to realize that we are teaching through language with machines and toward meaning. All the references that I have quoted here are here for people who might be interested in reading further. There are two slides for that, so hopefully you'll find this helpful. That's the end of the slide deck, and I look forward to any responses, any comments or feedback you might have. Here is my contact information.